Hello everyone, welcome to my studio. My name is Nadia Struijweg and I'm an artist from the Netherlands. I'm a music producer, I'm a DJ and I'm a gear reviewer, and I'm mainly focused on ambient and experimental music. And today I have something really fun for you because I created a new track and I used a lot of plugins from Applied Acoustic Systems, which are really lush and awesome to use. So I have a little run through my project and I hope you like it, get inspired, and let's go. I think it's just basically time to just first show you what I've done in the track and let you hear a little bit of it. But let's dive into this and let's see what I've used for each part. So if we go to the top, I used the Chromophone 3, which I love. So if I open up the Chromophone 3, this is your home layout. And it's very easy to use, for my feeling very intuitive. There are some modulation options. But yeah, the Chromophone 3 is a two-voice synthesizer and it's based on physically modeled acoustic resonators, and this is the fun part because it creates such a unique kind of feel to your sound. And the coolest part of this plugin is that you can stack up these sounds. So you can find here layer A and B with two resonators. So if I go to the browser, you can find of course all your presets, and you can even make your own, you can star them, you can favorite them, and yeah, you can find all the different categories basically. But when you go to the editor, you can find layer A and B. And it has different tabs for different functions. So if I go to the mode tab, you can find here the two voices option, but you can also choose for a 4 voices one, and you can detune that, delay. And also you can find here your macros. So you can assign different macros here. And with this encoder knob, you can basically change that. You can increase or decrease the sound of that. In this one, you can hear that I used a little bit of a tribal. It's like the wood arp I chose for a preset right here, as you can see. And from the preset, I'm mostly manipulating the sound because I get really inspired by music that's out there already that someone made, or I'm not sure what it is, but from that point I can create something my own. You can find here on the right side, because you can hear it, it goes in sort of steps. So you can find an ARP function. So if I disable that, it just plays one note. But if I click on the ARP, it just uses the 7 steps, sorry. And if I open it up here, you just see I just use one MIDI note. But it basically uses this MIDI note to create these steps. So you can change the order, you can change the steps, you can change the length, anything here. So if I go to the synth part, the synth tab, you can find here the LFO you can adjust, the envelope, noise generator, a mixer, and then the resonator. So here you can disable and enable them, and you can choose out of different algorithms, which is really nice. For me, it sort of emulates the real sound of it, but you still hear it's very digital electronic. And they're snappy, and I love that. And then you have an effect tab, and here, yeah, it's like a rack, so you can stack up different effects. And here you can choose out of delay, distortion, basically the well-known kind of effects. So on this one I only use the reverb. And if you go to the other layer, like layer B, you can also like enable and disable them. So right now I'm just mainly using the low wood ARP. And it has the same function, so it has a mode tab, synth tab, and an effect tab. On the right side you have a master effect. So here also you can add some of the effects you like, and I love the delay in this one because if I disable this, it's very static, and I love the kind of tribal sound. So let's enable that again. So yeah, this is the Chromophone 3. Very fun, very fun. So let's go to the Lounge Lizard EP4. So I'm gonna let you hear what I've done. You can maybe already guess what it is. So I used a reverb on it just to create a little bit more room. It's an electric piano, and this electric piano, for me, I'm using it for a sort of bass sub kind of layer. But yeah, you can actually you can increase here also the fork of it, but I just lowered it down in decibel because I feel like I need that kind of sub. Yeah, and you can choose out of different characters. And then there is some distortion, chorus, reverb, and an equalizer, compressor. So very fun. For me, it gives like the right layer to this track. So let's go to the String Studio CS3. I think one of my favorites. It's so nice. So it starts here. As you can find, I used the utility on here just to use it as a sort of fade in, because it just works towards the break, just to create a little bit of character. So the String Studio CS3 is a multi-timbral synthesizer, and I love the layout of this. So it is kind of, for me, you know, a kind of familiar way of working with it, and the sound as well. And for me, it's a very intuitive layout, but it has these unique kind of inputs which you can use, like a bow and like a pick, and it just has a different sound to it. So create like different snappiness into it as well. And also in this plugin you can layer up the sound, so you can add up, like stack up another layer. And like the other plugins, it's so similar to each other. You can adjust compressor, equalizer, and some of the effects in here. Some modulators, so you can do some modulation. There's like an arpeggiator. You can enable and disable the steps. And of course, like here, there's like a nice filter in it, which I think it's a very nice filter. And as the tip I had, just always go to here, configure any parameter, and you will be able to do some automation into your track, which is nice. Effect rack, of course, you can add some effects in here, so it's quite broad for my feeling. And then you also have some master effects, so it's a fun thing as well. Very nice, and I think it's very nice that you have like independent layers of each other, and yeah, you can manipulate them. Yeah, so I'm using it as a sort of ARP. Then I have here a very low jungle tribal sound as well. Also the same kind of plugin, so the String Studio. So you can get like different kind of sounds out of this basically. Let's go to the Ultra Analog VA3. I needed some more percussion elements, so in this case, I added some kind of the white noise, and I also used some outer pen here in LFO, so I assigned the LFO to the rate of my outer pen, so it just goes a little bit back to the left, to the right, back to the front, I want to say, and a reverb. And as you can see, I also used the object delay on this one, and I'm gonna show you, because it's one of my favorites, to be really fair. So the Ultra Analog VA3 is a 2-voice multi-timbral synthesizer, and there's like different oscillators, different filters, and also again, like the home view is a little bit similar as the other ones. You can add some modulation, but let's go to the browser. There is again like the categories, the different drum, mallets, plugs, name it. And the editor. So again, you can add up 2 different layers on top of each other, and here I used a crash, and on the right side, let's say the layer B, I didn't use anything. But it's for me a very sort of well-known layer. It reminds me a bit of the Moog. So there are some 2 oscillators, there's some envelope in here, some noise you can add to it, which you can really hear in this kind of sound. So the noise was for me very important to create this kind of washy, whooshy sound. Filter, very snappy as well. So You hear it a little bit less now because I just used like noise. Then there's the envelope, so you can increase sustain to make a very like long kind of sound. Then the release, and then like, yeah, the output, so you can also increase the gains. Also, you have an ARP in here, so if I enable it, you can actually assign these steps. You can enable them, disable them. It creates a cool kind of rhythmic as well, which I'm not using right now because let's go back to what I'm using for that. So I'm using the object delay for that. So let's open it up. If I disable it, very dry. It's just like continuously the same kind of noise from the middle of the sound, the center of the sound. If I enable it, it's so much fun because, of course, I always love the ping pong delay. It gives that spacious sound. But there are some different algorithms you can choose of, like the beam, drum head, plate, and it just creates just a little bit of a different metallic kind of sound on this sound I'm using. So there's an LFO section in this delay, which makes it quite unique because with this as well, you can really manipulate the sound that it, again, creates a different rhythm. So love it. Yeah, and then the high cut, low cut. I think not every delay I'm using needs to have like the full spectrum of sound, so that's why I like it. Play with this, it's just so much fun, seriously. The ultra analog doesn't create only cymbals or like kind of noisy sounds, it also creates really lush pads. So here I'm using one towards the break, and I use another layer on top of it. Let's solo them both to create a very rich frequency spectrum. And I'm always doing that. I'm always using different layers, different levels of layers for one sound. So this goes towards the break. And then I'm also using it as a really nice bass line. So you can hear it here, it's just coming up. Yeah, I love this bass line so much. So this makes it a little bit more epic. Epic! Then we go here to another ultra analog VA3. And here you can hear again the delay I'm using. And here you can also hear pretty well the LFO. And also here I used the drum head. You really can hear a sort of metallic material into that delay. And if I push it off, it's very dry. Last but not least of all the plugins I used is the Strum. So it is a guitar emulation, and I love it for this break. And it shows me also like the chords that it's using. Like I'm not classical schooled, so in this way I'm learning also a little bit more about what is matching to each other. And yeah, you really can create your own guitar with this, like an own kind of sound. Also you can add some distortion, and if I put it off on. And as well here you can assign and configure all these parameters. So it's nice to just put that in the mix, you know, and play with that. So yeah, and the rest what I've used are mainly samplers, drum kits and audio tracks. So the hi-hat, there's a kick snare, there's some FX going on here, some sounds, some vocals, the kick, hi-hat loop, and last but not least in here it's the sub. So it just really amplifies the whole track and it just lifts it, and it is the bass, literally the bass of the track. So we come to the end of this walkthrough, and I really hope you enjoyed it and got some inspiration out of it to make music. There's so much more to talk about these plugins, which are very awesome to use in a very creative way. And I think it's just time for you to find out yourself and create some lush music. Hope you enjoyed, and see you next time.